All right, good evening, everybody. Let's call this Planning Commission meeting to, sorry, I'm sleep deprived. I have a new child at home, so we're going to go ahead and get this meeting going. The June 21, 2022 Planning Commission meeting for the town of Truckee. And we'll start with a roll call vote. It's not a roll call vote. Roll call.
Chair Gove.
I'm here, barely.
Vice Chair Tarnay.
Present.
Commissioner Miller.
Present.
Commissioner Freeman and Riley are noted as absent.
All right, and I'd like to ask any of you if you'd like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. You may do so. Okay, so next we'll move into public comment. We have an opportunity for anybody that wants to come up and give 3 minutes of public comment for anything that is not on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to exercise your right to public comment, come on up. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move into the approval of minutes. Looks like we're going to have to table the March and April approval of minutes again. Is that correct? Because I will recuse myself. I was not at those meetings, and therefore we don't have a quorum for those two agenda items. Yeah? Jenna's nodding her head.
Correct.
Okay, so then we can move into the May approval of minutes for the May 17th regular meeting.
I move that we approve the May meeting minutes. I don't have any comments on them.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. The May 17th, 2022 minutes are approved, and we have no, item number 6, no minor reviews, and item number 7, we have a public hearing major review for the Rocker Memorial Skate Park. Right? That's what we're all here for, right? All right. Jenna, are you going to lead us through this project? No? Okay. All right. Well, Laura, what do you got for us?
All right. Let's get started. So as you mentioned, we are here tonight to talk about the Rocker Memorial Skate Park. The location of the proposed project is here. We'll zoom in on the next slide so you can see a little bit more closely. We've got the rodeo grounds directly across the street, and then the existing skate park across Estates Drive on the other side. It's kind of the southeast corner of the regional park. We have residential to the north and east, and then directly adjacent to the parcel here is where the Planning Commission recently approved the Estates Meadows Housing Development Project. Little background on the project. The Rec District in January 2020 approved a master plan for the regional park. One of the preferred facilities that was identified in that plan was expanded skate park in this location. The environmental review wasn't completed as part of the master plan. It was identified as a critical path item that needed to be either completed in the future for the master plan or completed for various facilities as they came forward for development. So this is the portion of the site that we are looking at. It's about 2 acres of the 11.29 acre parcel. It was previously disturbed by grading. It's been used in the past as an informal parking lot and the location of some seasonal events like the carnival. That's a view of the existing site. The project description, the applicant's asking for land use approvals to construct a 24,686 square foot outdoor skate park with 28 parking spaces. It will be operated by the Rec District at the regional park. The entitlements that are requested tonight are adoption of a mitigated negative declaration, approval of a development permit for the site disturbance, a minor use permit for disturbance within 200 feet of a wetland, and a zoning clearance to permit the parks and playground use, which is allowed in that zoning district when it's operated by a public agency. Here is the site plan for the proposed project. So you can see the skate facilities on the left and then the parking area on the right. And here's a rendering of the proposed project. We can come back to any of these later if you want to take a closer look. In the staff report, we provided a few different discussion topics for the commission to consider. The first is whether the required findings for the land use entitlements can be made. The second is whether the conditions of approval adequately adequately address potential aesthetic or parking impacts and make sure that the project is compatible with the surrounding uses. And third is whether there have been appropriate mitigation measures applied to the project to address any potential environmental impacts. In terms of general plan consistency, the site is located in the public land use designation, and allowed uses in that designation include recreational facilities. The site is already in an area with existing infrastructure. It's close to other recreational amenities at the regional park and trails which provide pedestrian and bike access. One of the things with general plan consistency that we looked at was the level of service policies that we have in the 2025 general plan. The engineering division did a review of that to make sure that the project would be consistent with those policies and found that the intersection has adequate capacity to accommodate any additional traffic that would be created by the project. Another thing we looked at was the wetland proximity and determined that there would need to be some mitigation measures applied to the project to protect the open space and biological resources. So mitigation measures from the mitigated negative declaration were incorporated into the proposed conditions of approval. And it's our opinion that the project's consistent with the 2025 general plan. In terms of development code consistency, the public facility zoning district is applied to areas for public and other uses, including recreational uses, like the parks and playground use. The proposed use is consistent with the allowed uses, and some discussion items in the staff report that we included for your consideration were the site design, parking, pedestrian improvements, and wetland proximity. In terms of the site design and aesthetics, the design is similar to the existing skate park that's across the road at the regional park. It has similar features and is also located adjacent to the Brockway Road multi-purpose trail. There's proposed landscaping that would provide some screening of the project from Brockway Road. One thing the commission might want to consider is whether that is adequate to screen the project, or if you think that additional landscaping would be beneficial. So a couple of pictures that were included in the staff report. The top left here shows the existing skate park, and then another rendering of the proposed skate park, so you can see the similarities. And then in terms of the existing screening, you can see on the top, the existing skate park has some mature trees that provide screening, whereas the proposed site is a little bit more open. It's on the other side of the wetland area, so that you don't have that same amount of mature vegetation. Here's the proposed landscaping plan. So you can see along the edge here at the bottom, which is what would be visible from Brockway Road. The plants includes trees and shrubs that would provide some screening there. Next topic for development code consistency is parking. The project proposes to construct 28 spaces as part of the new skate park. We don't have a specific parking demand for this type of use in the development code. It's determined through the land use permits, so it's at the discretion of the Planning Commission. The regional master plan, or the park master plan, has some language talking about parking conditions, how it fluctuates on the hour, depending on the activities that are programmed, and then by the season with higher demand in the summer. As part of the master plan process, the rec district and the town worked with LSC to do some parking analyses, and that determined that there's 99 existing striped spaces at the park, and a lot of the parking that goes on within the park happens on dirt or unpaved areas. The existing capacity within the park was estimated at 483 spaces. And as part of LSC's studies, they looked at several new uses at the park, including the expanded skate park. Lot 7 is the project site, which was referred to as the carnival lot in those studies. And they found that there were 100 spaces currently. They assumed that about 40 would remain as part of the skate park project in the future. And the parking demand for the skate park, including both the existing and proposed facilities, they determined was 16 spaces during typical peak times, 38 spaces during maximum event peak times. So the current project is proposing to construct 28 spaces. Based on LSC's calculations, that would address the typical peak parking demand and would have some additional parking that could be used by other users at the regional park. Typically, that's how the parking works. It's not allocated to individual parcels, but shared within different uses at the park. The rec district has prepared a parking plan for larger events like the rodeo, with the intention of managing parking impacts of those types of events. We also proposed some conditions of approval that would address future events at the skate park to make sure that any impacts created by that would be addressed. In addition to the vehicle parking, the applicant team is proposing to construct at least 7 bike parking spaces. That's consistent with the current development code requirements and exceeds what would actually be required for this project because it came in under a previous version of the development code. At that time, only 3 bike parking spaces would have been required. Next topic is wetlands. For the environmental review of the project, Ecosynthesis created a wetland delineation, identified the wetlands on the site, which are shown here on the top left in the blue areas. And then the image in the below shows the adjacent wetland locations. The project isn't proposing any direct fill of the wetlands, but there is some construction areas that would approach the wetland boundaries. There's no surface connection between those wetlands and the Truckee River. That's one of the things that was identified in the study. We have requirements for construction projects to make sure that sediment doesn't enter local waters, whether they're tributaries to the Truckee River or not. The ecosynthesis study found that we could avoid wetland impacts and preserve the habitat by implementing the required mitigation measures in the environmental document. Engineering also reviewed the project and incorporated some requirements for snow storage and stormwater treatment to maintain the water quality and quantity. And we believe that with the incorporation of those mitigation measures and the conditions of approval, any wetland impacts would be avoided. And the next topic is intersection and pedestrian improvements. LSC also did a traffic study for the project. They analyzed the trip generation and vehicle miles traveled, and then they also looked at site distances and evaluated the existing pedestrian crossing on Estates Drive. They found that the site distances were adequate for the proposed skate park driveway. They noted that the master plan for the regional park identifies some improvements in conjunction with the town for the Estates Drive intersection, but also noted that this project would only add traffic along Estates Drive and wouldn't add any conflicting traffic at the intersection. So the conclusion was that the Estates Drive intersection improvements wouldn't need to occur as part of the skate park project. For the existing pedestrian and bike trail crossing, LSC had some recommendations on installing warning signs for the marked crosswalks, prohibiting parking to make sure that there's adequate visibility, and striping crosswalks. So engineering included condition of approval number 28, which requires the design for those pedestrian and crossing improvements to be approved by the town engineer before building permit issuance. And to make sure that all of LSC's recommendations were specifically included in the conditions, we also included condition of approval number 56, which listed out all of their different recommendations as things to consider. Engineering reviewed that condition language, and they agreed that the pedestrian crossing signage and striping would be appropriate and should be required as part of this project. They felt that the pedestrian activated beacons were also an appropriate crossing upgrade, but didn't think they would be warranted by this project alone. The costs of doing that kind of improvement would, they felt, be unfairly placed on this project. So their recommendation was to require those as part of implementation of the future master plan as that builds out. So based on that feedback, we're recommending some modifications to condition 56, and it basically indicates which of those requirements would be part of this project, and that the beacon and other intersection improvements would be part of the future master plan build-out. We've received a number of public comments on the project. 3 of those were included in the staff report. We received 13 additional comments after the staff report was published. We published all of those on the website and made those available to the commissioners to review prior to the hearing. Environmental review. We did an initial study, mitigated negative declaration. that was routed to all the state agencies through the state clearinghouse, identified potential significant environmental impacts and mitigation measures that would reduce or eliminate all the potential impacts. We incorporated those into the conditions of approval, and it's our opinion that the mitigation measures that were developed are adequate to meet the requirements of CEQA, as well as the goals and policies of the general plan. The staff recommendation, we feel that the project's located near residential neighborhoods, trails, and existing recreational amenities at the regional park. The proximity to those amenities makes it a desirable location for an expanded skate park, consistent with the town's general plan, and also consistent with the master plan for the park. We think that this would add to the recreational amenities for the community and that it's compatible with the existing and proposed surrounding uses. With the incorporation of the mitigation measures and conditions of approval that we've drafted, we think that any potential environmental impacts have been avoided and the project is consistent with the development code and the town's general plan. So our recommendation is to adopt Resolution 2022-10, adopting the mitigated negative declaration and approving the development permit, minor use permit, and zoning clearance subject to the recommended conditions of approval. The commission could choose to take alternate actions on this project tonight. You could continue the hearing if you believe that additional information from the applicant or staff should be provided. You could add, delete, or modify conditions of approval. You could deny the project if you find that the required findings can't be made, or you could require us to do additional environmental review. If you choose to take action tonight on this application, the appeal period would end Friday, July 1st, 2022 at 5 p.m. So I'm happy to take any questions. We also have a presentation from the applicant team if you want to do that. Now.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move into the presentation from the applicant team, and then we can go into clarifying questions after that.
Okay.
Thank you. We want you to turn that microphone on there. There'd be a red button on there, red light. We should be able to hear you.
Are we better now? All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for showing up for your support. Really appreciate it. This is a long time coming. We're going to try and rip through this and get through it pretty quick here, but we wanted to go through a little bit of our agenda here, talk about what's the goal, the partnerships that we have.
What's your name?
My name is Colin Robinson, Truckee resident, father. I appreciate your lack of sleep. Sorry. It sucks. I got a puppy too, but
Dude, why?
anyway, so we're going to talk about what's the goal, our partnerships, the success timeline, what it took to get here, standing here right now. Also the location, some renderings, talk about the amenities, additionally some of the things that we saw in the conditions of approval, which I got to say pretty much made me have a heart attack when I found 83 of them on Thursday, but it seems like we've got that mitigated, as well as then provide time for feedback and questions. We've got our entire team here as well too, so we should be able to answer any questions that you have. So moving forward, what's the goal? The goal here is to build a 25,000 square foot expansion skate park in Truckee. The easiest way to describe it is the current Truckee skate park is one blue run. We're trying to add beginner, advanced, and expert. They're motioning for additional seats up front if you want to join us. So what does this do? It activates an underutilized area in a prime location. So this is going to be a sustainable facility that will require very little maintenance. It's easily accessible off the legacy trail system, keeps cars off the road locally. Additionally, it's very easily accessible from the TART transit locations as well too. And most importantly, from our perspective, it's going to beautify the landscape, significantly improve the ecologic impact of the current vacant impervious lot, as well as create a world-class facility in Truckee. So this will be a regional attraction. It's going to reduce the vehicle miles traveled to Reno and Sacramento to recreate at areas that have similar facilities. Partnership, that's the number one thing that we want to highlight here. This is a huge partnership with Truckee Donner Recreation Park District. They were the people that actually gave us the land to even get to this point and make it start happening. So again, thank you to Steve, who's here also with us. This has been nothing but a partnership with the Park District, and that also includes the PUD. So that's what a lot of people don't understand is the land is owned by multiple different people. That makes things very difficult for us. So with a partnership with the PUD, who is the parcel owner, the rec department granted us the land. It's on a 50-year lease, so that means that the skate park's going to be there for a long, long time. Additionally, they've committed to the long-term maintenance as a facility as part of the regional park. So not only do we have the land, but we have the long-term maintenance. And at this point, all donations have come from individuals and businesses, so at the moment, we're currently privately funded. Additionally, it's worth highlighting who our designer is. So that's Zach Warmhout. He's one of the top designers in the world. His dad actually created the first public skate park in all of California. So if you're familiar with Derby, that was Zach's dad that did it. He was also involved in the current Truckee skate park, and he works for California Skate Parks. He's been involved not only in the Olympics, but all of the Vans contest series as well, too. So we're in good hands in terms of our designer and his level of understanding of not only our environment, but the broader skate park environment as well, too. Now, who are we? So who is Rocker Memorial Skate Park Foundation? We were founded in January 2013. Rocker died in an avalanche at Donner Ski Ranch in December of 2012. We've got some of the founding members here. They decided to get together, started talking to the Park District. We have an all-volunteer board and committee. We've dedicated hundreds, if not thousands of hours over the last couple of years to this cause. We are a 501c3 with Charity Smith as our fiscal sponsor as well, too. We've gotten here through our unique community events. That's our primary fundraising source. So we've got the Rally for Rocker, we've got the Grom Skate Contest, we've got Golf for Skate. These are all unique events, very unique to Truckee specifically. And it's through these events that we've been able to raise the money to even get to this point right here. So again, want to say thank you to everybody that's attended, everybody that's helped organize and throw these events. We couldn't be here without you. As far as benefits to the community for this new expanded skate park, of course, it's going to be free. That's the number one thing we want to highlight. It's a free all-ages recreational outlet. It's open sun up to sundown. It provides a positive social space. It's an alternative to team sports, fosters community, encourages diversity. There's significant health benefits. It helps develop self-discipline, stamina, and self-confidence, and it also creates a public interactive culture. As far as users themselves, people that go to skate parks, they're going to look at it as not only a playground, but a gym, a laboratory for creative pursuits, as well as a community center. That's where you meet up with people. Helps with mental health, fosters community, encourages diversity, and of course, resilience. If there's one thing skateboarders are good at doing, it's getting up after falling down. So it's worth addressing, isn't there already a skate park? Yes, there is, and it was built in 1999. It's 7,000 square feet. It's located across the street in the Truckee Regional Park. It supports more users than almost any other facility in the district. And from a 2014 report, it's one of the most used facilities in the entire district. That's awesome. That's from 2014. The problem is, for us, is that it's getting crowded. Skateboarding participation has exploded over the last couple of years, especially with COVID and its inclusion in the Olympics. So there's a lack of safe beginner and expert areas. Again, it's one blue run. We're trying to build the green and the black as well, too. Here's a picture from the Grom contest. You can see all the kids eagerly awaiting some stickers or merch. So this is a great example of one of the contests that we throw for the kids of the community and the region. So you can see an example of the skate park right there. Now, in terms of success, I want to run through this for everybody in the room as well, too, because we've been on quite the journey here. So, land grant from the Park District. Again, great to see so many people in the room. We had a huge showing there. So, again, I really appreciate everybody showing up. Design, there's been quite a few comments about design. We'll address that here shortly. But in July of 2017, we had a public meeting where lots of people came together, talked about design. We went back and forth with our designer. And in December, we basically finished that design. Here we can see some of the feedback that was gathered during those meetings. specifically talking about what type of features. Now, a change that we made in the original renderings that we had was we had planned on actually building a massive competition skate park. That is not what the community told us that they wanted. So we directly adjusted the design to meet the community needs for a broader range of terrain that would be available. Now, I debated whether or not I put the word challenges at the top of this, but in February of 2018, coming off of design, we were feeling really good. We asked for some input from the town of Truckee. We started working on that for the next year. We have Casey here to thank. She basically led that charge, so thank you, Casey. April 2019, we went to go get signatures so that we could submit for permits, and the PUD basically said, hey, we want to know what else is going on in the regional park. Valid concern. There's lots of talks about library, kid zone, ice rink, all of these other things. The park district basically for us jumped on this and initiated the plan to do the regional area master plan, ironically, which spells ramp. We spent the next year going through the public process for the ramp, and you'll see over here on the right that the recommendation was made on the immediate implementation timeline was to implement and build Rocker Memorial Skate Park. So we were really excited to get that positive news back. But as you can see, that took some time. Now, does anybody remember what happened in March of 2020? So we did submit we basically got feedback and started working, and basically a year later, February 2021, we submitted back to the town for our initial study. That's when it was determined that we needed the mitigated negative declaration. I've learned more about environmental stuff than I ever cared to admit. I'm hoping that I can forget it after today. But basically over the course of the year, we spent upwards of $60,000 on the MND. I'd like to say thank you to the town of Truckee for also being the lead agency. Laura, appreciate your work over all of the years. This has been a long process. Additionally, we consulted with Millennium PE. Rob's here as well too to answer questions when we get to that point. But we went through all of these different reports. The only one that's really cool though is geotech, because we actually got to see a hole in the ground. So at this point for us, everybody that's working on it, it's been pushing paper. And seeing a hole in the ground was a big deal, at least to me. So that was pretty cool. Now, next steps, of course, we're here right now. I'm hoping that today we approve the initial study, the mitigated negative declaration. We do have to complete some construction documentation, making sure that we adhere to all of the conditions of approval that have gone in. We can then submit for the grading permits with that approval. We do need to finalize fundraising. We've been caught in this chicken before the egg scenario for many years where when can you build it? Well, you can't say when you can build it until you have permits. Well, you got to have money to get permits, and here we are. So I'm very excited to be pushing past this. With that fundraising, we can build, and that brings us to groundbreaking and what our goals are for that. But first, we want to talk about success. This is what success looks like to us, a beautifully landscaped, modern public skate park that improves this area of Truckee and provides the terrain and the environment for generations to come. We're pretty excited about this. Now, we do have some comments and some feedback that has been received about some of the design features on the skate park. Most commonly, and I'll just point to it up here real quick, is some of the bumps in the middle. Well, we've heard a lot of feedback that people want more flat area and some more street-oriented areas. Well, luckily, that's the type of thing that we can change in the plans. There's lots of things that we can't change, but we can change stuff like that. So just wanted to address that before anybody chose to speak about that in public comment. We are aware of your feedback. The location, again, just making sure everybody's clear. We've got the Truckee Skate Park on the left. You can see the size of Rocker Memorial Skate Park over on the right. And again, another layout rendering. Now, what I wanted to highlight on this layout rendering was the connection to the Legacy Trail system. So you can see that along the bottom. Additionally, the sidewalk that will be included around the left-hand side on Estates, that combined with the other project that you approved last month will now create sidewalk that goes all the way from the intersection and the Legacy Trail all the way to all of the subdivisions back there as well too. I live in that neighborhood, so I'm pretty excited to see that entire area developed. that'll be very positive for my kids walking back and forth to the regional park. Now, the park amenities, we're including 28 parking spaces, sidewalks on estates, path connecting to the legacy system. One of the conditions of approval is to add some bike parking, so we'll get that in there, no problem. And with permits and funding, theoretically, we could get this built next year. So that's the really positive part about this. Now, again, we still have quite a few steps to go through, but with permits and funding, our goal is summer 2023. We couldn't have got this far without our community, so again, thank you for showing up. We really appreciate it. We're so close to making this park a reality. We want to take a quick moment to quickly thank our community support and sponsors. So you'll notice quite a few local businesses on here, as well as some larger sponsors as well too. So again, really appreciate all the support. Couldn't do it without you. We do have, of course, a bunch of continued needs, mostly funding and additional volunteers. So if you're interested in helping, we'd love to talk to you. There's a lot of work left to be done, but you can see we've got a ton of continued support and needs in order to make this reality, but this is a huge step in the right direction. So with that being said, I'd like to open it up for questions and comment. We do have Rob Wood, Steve Randall, and Casey all here that can address questions of pretty much any type. So any further questions or comments, I'm happy to address those. I'll come back to this here. My name again, Colin. We've got tons of contact. You can find us on the web or all the socials. But again, questions, comments, concerns.
Okay, thanks, Colin. We're going to go ahead and move into clarifying questions for staff, and then sit tight, because then we'll have clarifying questions for you after that.
Literally sit tight or stay here?
You can sit down, yeah.
There we go.
Unless you want to stand there, it's up to you, yeah. Okay, Susie, we did see that you had a pretty good list of questions that staff had already answered. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
I do have a couple more. I just want to clarify just a couple things. Laura, I'm just going to run through my list just to make sure that I was understanding. Does that make sense? I'm not asking the whole question. I'm just doing the clarification statements. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Great. So we had to use LOS on this because LOS is still in our current general plan? Okay. Right. Will it be in the next general plan, or we don't know yet?
It's proposed to be still as a standard in the general plan.
Still proposed.
Yeah, the VMT is a CEQA standard.
Well, and we were required by the state to have the VMT.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And sorry, we're using a lot of acronyms. CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. VMT is vehicle miles traveled, and LOS is level of service.
Okay, and then you were talking about putting parking in the wood-chipped area for parking inside the rodeo grounds. That is not actually in the arena, it is just in the enclosure, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that was totally not clear to me. And you're saying that we should not ask for a pedestrian beacon here because it's too much to put on a nonprofit organization who's raising money for that. That's the goal?
Not just that, Scott could probably jump in if he wants, but I believe the purpose of not requiring it is that we don't think that this particular project would trigger the need for it, whereas the bigger build out of the master plan could potentially.
And do we have an estimate on a cost of one of those?
Yeah, so I mean, there's different levels of improvements for crosswalks. One of them that the engineering division is in support of is striping the crosswalk that currently isn't striped and signing appropriately with MUTCD signage. The rapid flashing beacons that we've installed primarily like in school district areas, like along Donner Pass Road at all of those crossings. Out at Glenshire Elementary, there's rapid flashing beacons out there. There's one at the hospital. So like high pedestrian areas with usually some use that warrants it. In this case, the additional pedestrian traffic between the two, we didn't feel that it warranted the need and investment by one specific project. It is a beneficial improvement for the park and that crossing as a whole, but we thought that it'd be more appropriate for that to be looked at kind of as a general master plan build out, whether that be full build out, additional uses, something with kind of more of a traffic generation that would warrant that type of traffic. To your question about what the potential cost is. Typically, we do solar-powered ones, so there's no connection to the electric facilities. They're running somewhere in the $15,000 a piece range, so you're looking at about $30,000 in costs there for those solar pedestrian beacons.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So just don't go anywhere because I'm confused. This parks master plan and the accompanying parking improvements, when will that be fully implemented? Is that when all of the other ones are built? So is that when the ice rink, the library, and kid zone and rocker are built? Or is that triggered with one or two of these projects? Or is it just on a per project basis?
Yeah, good question. I think that it will be a discussion that will need to be had on a per project basis to see really where the intended uses and traffic, both pedestrian and vehicle traffic, is affecting that pedestrian crossing. As part of these future projects, there could be other locations that would suit better for a pedestrian activated crosswalk. Maybe it's across estates like at the rodeo grounds if something gets developed behind the rodeo grounds. So I think that there isn't a generator currently that would warrant the rapid flashing beacons at that location, and that it should be discussed on a project by project basis moving forward.
So that also goes for that same question for the full parking improvements, where that it's just a project by project. So what I don't understand is those other projects are most of them are on the other side of the park, correct? None of those are going to add to the traffic at this corner, are they?
So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the proposed kid zone parcel is down behind the rodeo ground, so that may affect that. I think that it'll be something that the town engineer will need to consider as part of these future land use applications, and really the traffic analyses that come along with those to determine when those types of improvements are warranted at both that intersection and the pedestrian improvements at the crosswalk.
And they would be warranted because of an LOS impact.
It could be an LOS impact. It could just be overall traffic generation of that use. It could be traffic and pedestrian generation at those specific uses that ultimately lead to some tipping point of when an improvement needs to be made at the intersection there of the driveways, or further improvements to that crosswalk that won't exist after this project.
Okay, it just concerns me because that's why most places are moving away from LOS, because you leave that last project to have to do everything. And that's my concern there. I'll move on though. Thank you. So just to be clear, this project did not screen out of the VMT calculation because it was neither housing nor commercial, but that's currently fixed for non-building, correct?
Right, under the 2020 VMT thresholds, it didn't screen out, but under our current VMT thresholds, a project like this would.
It would have. Okay, thank you. So I don't know if you want to pull up the landscape map. So the South Bioretention Basin releases overflow, and again, this is your answer, only after the 85th percentile 24-hour storm. So there's a little outlet there. Is there any way we can tell how close that outlet is to any of those small wetlands, the FEW3, FEW4? Do you see what I'm asking there? It was also a comment in the letter from Lisa Wallace where she said, direct runoff away from the wetland areas. And it looks like it's directed towards the wetland area there. Does that make sense? So that south bioswale, do we know how far it outlets from FEW4 or FEW3? I can ask the applicant if you have no idea.
I can't give you like a exact distance away. I'll tell you that, so the intent of treatment of stormwater on site, and even more so in relation to a wetland area like this. So with wetlands, you typically don't want to like remove substantial amount of water from those locations because it changes the ecology in the areas. So what the intent was with the drainage design on this one was to take all of the water from the skate park, which doesn't have vehicles driving on it, so the pollutants aren't as much of a concern with that. Treat that in that bio swale on the south side, and then safe release both the treated water as it's going through the subsurface, but also anything over that design storm, releasing that back into the wetland area to keep the wetland area wet. Without the kind of car pollutants from the parking lot, and then the parking lot is treated through a separate bio retention facility that stormwater is actually directed back into the roadway stormwater system. So that was the idea of kind of decoupling the two different areas, and we worked with the Millennium team for that.
Thank you. And that actually answered another question. It doesn't show where that swale goes on the northeastern corner, so it goes back to stormwater drains type thing. Thank you. Okay. Again, back to that northeast corner, there's a proposed swale there. Does that count as a drainage path, and does that need the 20-foot easement dedicated to the town?
Good question. No, that wouldn't be. So the 20-foot drainage easement dedicated to the town is typically when you have two adjacent roadways that have a drainage facility on either side that need to cross a parcel. It's typically called a cross-country easement. Have a lot of them in a lot of the subdivisions where you have kind of gridded roadways, where if you have water traveling from the public right-of-way across a private property to another public right-of-way, that's where there needs to be a maintenance easement for Public Works to be able to maintain those drainages to keep that water flowing. In this case, it's private stormwater that is being treated, and then the safe release is being discharged across private property into the public right-of-way. It never goes back onto the private property. So there's no easement that's needed there.
Great. I thank you. That makes it much more clear. Not too many more. Thank you for your patience. Okay, it looks like our conditions of approval are going to require trash and recycling receptacles. The number and location, is that determined at a staff level?
Correct. We would review a final solid waste plan as part of the building permit process.
Okay, and then one of the suggested locations is near seating areas. Am I missing it? Are there seating areas on the plans?
Possibly.
Okay, I can ask.
Yeah, maybe that's a question for the applicant team. It didn't look like from the site plan that was proposed. I think you were asking about picnic benches and things like that. I didn't see any of that on the site plan, but the applicant team could probably speak to that.
Oops. Great, I will ask them. And then, is there bleachers?
There was an earlier iteration that showed what looked like some bleachers kind of with their back to the Brockway side, but that's not shown in the current plans, so that might be something that was modified.
Okay, thank you. Then, okay, are there any trees being removed for this project?
I don't believe so. There's very few trees on the site, and they're all kind of in that upper left-hand corner. I think all of those are proposed to be retained.
Even the one on the very corner that shows up in the satellite picture?
Rob might be able to speak to that in the applicant questions.
Okay, delightful, thank you. It looks like a significantly sized tree, so. Then, has there been any talk of an alternate location for a carnival? That's just a random, I live in Truckee, my kids like the carnival question.
That might be a question for Steve.
And I'm sorry, who is Steve?
Steve
And-
Randall from the Rec
okay.
District.
Thank you. Okay, I will ask that next question to you as well. And I think, well, no, I'll have to ask you then, sorry. And then for staff, they're talking about some changes to layout. There can be changes to the layout without coming back to commission, correct? As long as it's in, minor or.
Correct. There's a 10% threshold for minor changes to a approved project.
And how do we calculate 10%, like square footage of the entire project?
Sometimes it's related to physical changes, sometimes it's related to other types of aspects of a project. So it's really at community development director's discretion.
Great, thank you. I think that is all of my staff questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller, do you have clarifying questions for staff?
I do, thank you. Was speed bump considered as traffic calming instead of the pedestrian activated button?
I don't believe that was talked about in the LSC study at all.
I'll talk on speed bumps in general, not necessarily for this case, but so speed bumps historically don't function well in Truckee, just based on snow removal operations, and we haven't really identified a comparable method of slowing cars down physically like a speed bump would, without causing like long-term maintenance issues for the plow operators.
Snow just makes everything harder. My other questions are for the applicant, so thank you.
Okay, great. I have no questions for staff, so we'll go ahead and move into clarifying questions for the applicant. Vice Chair Tarnay, you want to take it away?
I'd love to. Do you want to? I don't know who wants to move up there. So,
Sounds like we got questions for everybody, so.
perfect. I don't know if you can remember what I was asking you. So let's see. I wrote some things in here.
You were going to ask Steve about an alternative carnival location, I recall that. And you were going to ask Rob about
that was
whether
not
or
one of the major
tree on
ones.
the northeast portion of the corner. Well, I'm not sure where it was, but.
Yes, it is northwest. Do you know how close that outlet is to the little wetlands? The outlet from the southern bioretention swale.
Yes, Rob Wood with Millennium Planning and Engineering. It's about 13 feet.
Okay, and that's not a concern for the Truckee River Watershed Council that, again, said direct runoff away from wetland areas?
No concern at all. It's a bioretention that treats all the runoff before it then goes into the existing wetlands. So,
Except for in overflow conditions, but yes.
yeah, so essentially we're kind of building wetlands to protect wetlands.
Okay, duly noted, thank you. And then, so the seating area, I think, was the next question. Are there any seating areas planned? Is that you? Is that
That's
Colin?
Colin. So while I'm up here, I'll address the tree removal. We wouldn't have to remove any trees with the skate park or the parking lot itself. However, the frontage improvements that are required along States Drive would be curb, gutter, and sidewalk. And I anticipate we would remove 2 trees, one very small pine tree and one larger one at the corner. We may be able to meander around it, but I'd have to work with staff to see if that's okay, because we assumed an attached curb, gutter, and sidewalk. If we could detach it for a portion, we could save a tree, but if we have to attach it, we'll remove that tree.
Great, thank you that you're willing to do that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on the question regarding seating, we actually removed that area. So in previous renderings, we had shown some kind of stadium seating along one side, and that has subsequently been removed to provide the ADA accessible path from the Legacy Trail.
And so is there a plan to scatter a few picnic tables or benches? I swung by the other one today, and there's at least 2 or 3 picnic tables and 2 benches there.
Ideally, yes, but that's more of the park
Funding.
district side of things. So
we should ask Steve behind you.
if they have them available, we'll put them there. They're movable. That's the thing. We don't have any permanent seating currently in the scenario. So any seating that is provided would be of the same tables that you see at the rest of the parks.
I believe there actually is 2 permanent benches mounted at the existing skate park. But
We actually just added those. So that's one of the things that Rocker Memorial Skate Park actually added to the current park. So we put those in roughly 3 years ago.
great, thank you. Steve, do you have any plans for that?
Steve Randall, General Manager, Truckee Downer Rec and Park District. In terms of in any of our facilities, we would be putting in picnic tables for, people to sit, use at their leisure. You're going to have parents coming to watch kids that aren't particularly in the seating area, so that would happen. The carnival question, the carnival isn't a mainstay. One year they may want to come, one year they may not. So not building a facility because of, a 3 or 4 day carnival doesn't make sense. We have alternatives, so we would look at other things. We have other parks. They can go on the grass depending upon the type of event. We used to have the circus come as an example, years ago. So we look at each event and how it applies to the particular application and need.
Great, thank you. It won't 100% rule it out. There may be alternatives for it, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
Okay, and then I have one more question for you. One of our conditions of approval talks about maintenance of our best management practices, the BMP, operation and maintenance. Is that something that the nonprofit provides an ongoing funding for, or does the Parks and Rec take that over?
It's our facility. It's Park and Rec's responsibility.
Great, excellent. And I need a minute to look over, but I think I'd like to pass it on.
Commissioner Miller, clarifying questions for the applicant team.
Could someone on staff please pull up the site plan just for reference? While that's coming up, could someone, perhaps Colin, point out where the bike parking is going to go? I missed it if it wasn't
It's
obvious.
not currently in the plan. That's why you didn't see it.
Where do you
that-
imagine it going?
That's a great question. I'm potentially not the best person to answer that. I would envision it between the parking area and the park. We do have some space there. Actually, we had planned on having a large memorial sign, but that was also removed. So that would probably be my first guess, but I would leave that to the experts that know what they're talking about.
Likely, we're going to have it in 2 locations, one at the front near the entrance, near the parking, and one opposite on a States Drive. So likely we'll have 2 parking, bike parking areas with 5 stalls each, so we'll probably end up with 10 parking spaces.
Cool. And while this site is up, or page is up, where would the crosswalk go across the States Drive?
The crosswalk it would go between the existing 2 trails. So the Class 1 trail already connects to Estates and crosses right there. That's where it'll go.
That makes sense. Just wanted to clarify. And that is it for me. Thank you.
I did discover another.
Yeah.
How about it?
Yep.
I found my other question. Okay, so Steve, I think this is for you, Mr. Randall. So do we know, I got an answer about, this might be staff as well, the average number of vehicles, both passenger cars and horse trailer vehicles, that are accommodated daily during the rodeo. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Typically, there's maybe about 1,500 people at the rodeo. Let me grab my notes. Some of it was mentioned in the staff report, but on the LSC study, the carnival lot, the gravel area, whatever you want to call it, currently has about 100 parking spaces. That's what they looked at. The wood chip area has 85, so that would be a net loss of 15, but the project will be creating 18, so you're actually gaining 13. The regional park in total has 483 spaces, but if it was lined out, could accommodate 720. So depending upon how the park progresses and changes, we have a couple other projects that are in the queue right now. The kid zone, which will actually be on that side of the park behind the rodeo arena, and then the library, which will be on the other side of the park in the small ball field parking area. So as those projects get going, and they'll have much larger visitor population, those things will get more developed.
Okay, so before we develop all the other parcels, my sort of take-home question here is, will the existing park-wise parking that is available after the skate park is constructed allow for normal amount of participant vehicles who are attending the rodeo, or will the rodeo organizers need to sort of adapt in some way? Will they need to, promote more carpooling, provide e-bike parking, or?
At its current level, the park will accommodate the users of the rodeo. If it were to, rodeo became a big deal moving down the road, then potentially they would have to develop a parking plan.
Okay, and it said somewhere in there that for the rodeo there was a parking plan. Like, is that as specific as you have hired attendants slotting cars in so you're more efficient than self-parking?
So during the rodeo, they hire the high school boosters, and they charge for parking that has been in that lot. So they would be able to charge. First of all, the skate park wouldn't run when the rodeo's going on. It would be closed for those 2 days. Keep in mind, rodeo event is 2 days. They could charge for those 28 spots. They could move over into the large ball field parking and charge for those spots. So, yep.
That is slightly different than what the staff report said, that we would allow individual users to come and use parking spaces.
I think Steve's point is that during the rodeo, since this is directly across the street, they may need to use this parking for those 2 days, but the rest of the park would still be open. They're not going to shut everything down just because the rodeo is going on.
So this,
we would not have special events going on the rodeo. Any other thing we have, when we have the Wednesday night concerts going on, we have softball, we've got, picnics, things like that. You can, see that the park accommodates that currently.
it's delightful. I just want to make sure that we're thinking ahead and not setting up conflict between two different types of park users.
We're very, very aware of parking.
Wonderful, thank you.
And always have been, but it works.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Anything else? Okay. Before we move into public comment, how about a quick straw poll on how we're feeling on this?
I'm feeling good, but I have questions about one of the conditions of approval.
Okay, great.
I'm feeling very good, and I would like to try and reroute that sidewalk and preserve the shade tree.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so before we move into deliberation, we will now open public comment for the item 7.1, the Rocker Memorial Skate Park. If you would like to make a public comment, please fill out a comment card either before or after you make your comment. Make your way up to the podium, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to say whatever you want. How about a show of hands? Who's in favor of this project out there? All right. Okay. Is anybody not in favor out there?
Can we do that again and not take a picture?
Yeah,
Yes, you absolutely can. Absolutely. Here, video the whole thing. Just tell me when you want to start.
All right, do it one more time.
Okay, who's in favor of this Rocker Memorial Skate Park out here?
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so seeing no public comment, we'll close public comment and move into deliberation. So sounds like we have a couple of concerns on the table before we approve this project, so let's get into it and figure it out. Commissioner Vice Chair Tarnay, what would you like to do?
I have a small prepared statement. So every single project that requires sidewalks immediately adjacent to the road is a missed opportunity to provide street trees between the sidewalk and the automobile travel lanes, and a missed opportunity to promote traffic calming, pedestrian protection, and heat mitigation. That is a I think we have a distinctive tree definition. That tree is more than 24 inches in diameter, and I think that we should do the work to route that sidewalk around it and protect it.
Can we pull up that site plan again, please, with the landscaping? And then I feel like we've talked about trees in between the sidewalk and the project before, and I feel like we had some comments from engineering. Scott, do we have any, what's your engineering's feedback on that?
I'd say that I think that we can look at it during building permit design. It'll ultimately be the town engineer that'll need to make the determination. I just pulled it up on Google Earth to kind of take a look at it. We'd have to take a look at it during building permit approval to make the final decision on that. If there's a way that it can be saved and rerouted, I think we'll consider it.
So what the commission has done in the past, specific to that, is said encourage the town engineer to look at a method to preserve the tree. So that way you can give that notice to the town engineer, and then when they're doing the design work, when we get closer to construction, they can actually take a look at that.
I think we're talking about two different things.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the sidewalk location.
We're talking about the sidewalk location, but I think you were talking about saving one specific tree, and I think, Susie, what exactly is it that you're advocating for?
No, this is one specific tree. Exactly.
Oh, got it. Okay, we got to save that tree.
I'm advocating for trees along the road in general.
Yeah, got it.
But in this specific case, this is one specific tree.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I think we have common goals. It's just that the town engineer has to actually look at the design first before being able to make that call. So if you're going to look at modifying a condition, you can just say we encourage the town engineer to look at preserving that tree.
As part of the
So
project improvement.
I do have the condition of approval it was, if you would like.
Yeah, let's pull that up and get that note in
That
there.
is condition of approval 26, requiring sidewalks, and I believe that is where it would fall under.
Okay, got that, Steph?
Yeah, I think that's right. So you're interested in modifying that language to add, encourage the town engineer to look at a design that would preserve the existing tree?
Preserve the existing distinctive tree of 24 inches diameter.
Okay.
Okay, is that it, Susie?
I think so. I'm a little concerned about that outlet for the overflow going directly back into the wetland, because it sounded like in the last project we talked about, nothing was directed into the wetland because the existing drainage goes away from the wetland. But I'm not going to stop the project from going forward either.
Yeah, I think that we can rely on our consultants that are trained professionals in this to go ahead and mitigate that correctly into the watershed's approval. Commissioner Miller, what exactly would you like to talk about?
About the crosswalk, and I appreciate, similar to that discussion, that the town engineer's not here to comment, and some quick Googling validates that, yeah, it seems really hard to make speed bumps work with snow. That's totally fair. I'm not entirely comfortable having a system that relies on a pedestrian to take action to do something to be safe. We should be prioritizing, pedestrians over cars. The default should make it safe for people to walk and bike. The one by the hospital that you mentioned, I have photos of walking there and the light's not working. And because that's the only built thing that people in cars expect to see to indicate pedestrians, it's not a good failure mode. But having a plow run into a bump isn't a great failure mode either. So I don't know if speed table is something that's detachable. I want to borrow that same language to encourage the engineer to explore solutions that apply engineering and the built environment to reduce conflicts rather than pedestrian activity. But I understand the constraints in that. So that's my proposed language for condition of approval 56.
It's a really interesting subject because Kings Beach is covered in them. They are called speed humps and speed cushions instead of speed bumps.
A fascinating area, and I'd be happy to talk more further, but that's the specific language that I'm requesting tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to make, I'd like to use my words again. I'm prepared to make a motion that we approve application 2020-84 as amended.
Commissioner Miller, would you mind repeating the requested language for number 56, just so we can get it?
Thank you for that opportunity. To encourage the town engineer to explore solutions that use the built environment and engineering rather than pedestrian intervention to reduce conflicts between pedestrians and cars. And while that's getting written down, I just want to say how much I loved the whole parking section of this report. Staff did an excellent job being holistic and thoughtful about that.
Okay, can you read it to me one more time just so I can make sure I have it all?
Encourage the town engineer to explore solutions that default to using the built environment and engineering rather than pedestrian intervention to reduce conflicts between pedestrians and cars. Thank you.
Got it.
Are you waiting for a second?
No, I'm just making sure that they got it. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to make a motion that, yeah, we approve application 2020-84, the Rockwell Memorial Skate Park with the commission's amendments.
I second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Chair Gove?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tarnay?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Motion carries. It's approved. So I got to say to all of you guys that came out, thank you very much for doing so. This has been the largest turnout that we've seen since prior to COVID, and I really wish that a lot more people in the community would come into these meetings with the amount of passion and enthusiasm that you guys did for a lot of stuff that we see. It means a lot. So congratulations. Good luck with your project, and we appreciate all the hard work. Okay, so we'll move into staff reports.
Laura, did you want to announce the appeal period just because we
Oh,
have to
yes, yeah,
formally-
absolutely. Let's announce appeal period.
The 10-day appeal period will end on Friday, July 1st, 2022 at 5 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to go off script a little bit here since we do have an audience that it's great to see all of you here. We all really appreciate it as staff also. And I want to just encourage you to participate in our general plan update process, because if you're passionate about what goes on in the community, there's nothing more important than what happens over the next 20 years, which is what our general plan is all about. So check out the 2040 website.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, go ahead.
Is this still on? I just wanted to say thank you, everybody. Again, we really appreciate it. All the support is critical to making this happen. I hope everybody is inspired and wants to help us get this over the finish line. This took a lot of years to get here. So again, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Unless you guys want to hear the rest of the staff reports. Okay, what's coming up on the agenda, folks? Do we have a staff report? Okay.
No staff reports.
All right. Do we have anything that the
Question about the next meeting on the agenda?
Yeah.
So in the agenda for today, it said the next planning commission meeting's on the 19th, but I believe that's a joint council and planning commission, and there's also a joint one on the 12th. I just want to check my mental calendar.
You're correct. There is a joint, so you would be technically adjourning to the joint council commission meeting on July 12th. Good catch. Well, and technically there's one next week.
There's one next week,
Yeah.
right?
So
Yeah.
cancel that, right, next
Yeah, the
Tuesday.
28th.
You're adjourning until next Tuesday.
Okay.
Good catch.
Do we have any commissioner reports?
I do, yes. Okay, we did have one Tuesday, June 28th at 5 p.m., correct? Okay. I have my regular report of what I did. Is that what we're doing?
That's where we're at.
Perfect. I attended the general plan workshop on June 9th. A fundraiser for the school, Great Skate, June 10th. Young Eagles, June 11th. Fortunately, my jury duty was canceled for June 15th, and I have passed all of my written exams, and I am now a commercial learner's permit holder.
Congratulations.
My update is that the July 19th meeting in the agenda will be my last meeting with the Planning Commission because my family and I are moving to Boston. So I look forward to talking about parking a little bit more with y'all. Thank you.
I've been changing diapers. Okay, and with that, we'll adjourn to the Joint Planning Commission Town Council meeting here in Chambers on Tuesday, the 28th at 5 p.m.